Hey, how's it going, guys? Raj here. I hope all of you are well. Welcome to the channel. So today is a more of a relaxed, not much structure type of video. Thought I would just sit on the sofa, switch on the camera, and talk about some randomly selected fragrances. So grab a drink, a cup of tea, cup of coffee, grab the fragrances if you've tried them, and maybe let's go through them together. So these fragrances, I'm working off some samples, some decants. I mean, when does a sample actually become a decant? That's what I want to know. A couple of larger decants. I think 5 ml and above is a decant, I think. So I have Guerlain's Bleue, the Eau de Parfum. Diptyque's Oud Palao. And a couple of, I think these are like 3 mls of Frederic Malle fragrances. One is the Moon, one is Portrait of a Lady. So I have some, for most of these I have prior experience off the fragrance before getting the sample. But it's always good to just try and get as much as you can, to test as much as you can. And I don't want to buy the full bottles. I think buying the samples is a really good way to test things out without splashing out, So, where should we start? Let's start with the Guerlain. So, Bleue has been around since, I think it was before 1920s. I think like 1910. I'll have to check. I haven't done the research, but yeah, I've known about this fragrance for a while. Every time I would go to the Guerlain boutique or the counter, whenever I tried the EDP version of Bleue, I'm going to do a little fresh spray. Yeah. One more. Whenever I tried this one, it was the one that really stood out to me the most. Compared to all the other classics, like the Mutsukos, the Vol de Nuits, Samsara and all those ones. This was the one that I really felt that I could own and love. So I used to own Mitsuko in the EDP. Liked it. It's a really well-made fragrance. Just didn't quite. The fruitiness became a little bit too much for me. But with Bleue, it's got to be considered one of the most elegant, classy fragrances from Guerlain. The fact that it's been around for probably just over 100 years now is pretty cool. I mean, how many fragrances are out there in current production that are this old? There probably are a handful, few from Guerlain, maybe a Chanel or a Caron, but maybe not even that old. I mean, is this the oldest fragrance currently in production? Could be. So with this one, I haven't looked into the notes and done any sort of in-depth research in addition to what I already know about this fragrance from my own knowledge and from what I've heard from other people. But for me, what really got me is that classic DNA that you'll find in Guerlain fragrances. The Guerlainade, it's all about this powdery iris. It's got a baby powder vibe. There is that sweet but slightly smoky vanilla note in there as well. I get the smell or the scent of, those love hearts, those violet sweets, those purple violet sweets, I think they're called love hearts. I kind of get that, like freshly opening up a pack. It's so refined, so smooth. I think, with these fragrances, with the classic Guerlains, they are very romanticized. The idea of these fragrances, they're made for women. The marketing, if you go on the Guerlain website, it's all about how a woman will be wearing these fragrances, and it's directed towards them. And I think this is classically, traditionally a feminine fragrance, but the EDP does something different on my skin. It works really well on my skin to the point where you know, I'm absolutely cool with wearing this fragrance. I really enjoy it. I think it's one of those where, you know, you can't just throw on Le Bleu and go to the nearest supermarket. You know, I can't go to Lidl wearing Le Bleu. It has to be in a classy establishment, you know. You're going out for a really, really nice dinner, just celebrating the occasion. You're dressed up. And while, yes, I do feel like my classy aunt would wear this and could pull this off really well, I think I can pull this off as well. And if you have the confidence to wear whatever you want, no matter who it's directed towards, who it's marketed towards, I think that's a demonstration of supreme confidence, you could say. Yeah, don't be swayed by what you hear from others, what people are telling you. I do feel though that there are certain people and certain scenarios that are best, and maybe this is best on a woman on a formal evening, but I really love it. You can just pick up shades of Shalimar, and you can smell Vol de Nuit a little bit in here as well. There's a kind of slightly dirtiness in there. There's a skankiness, like a... Maybe it's like something that is slightly... I don't know how to say it. Maybe something slightly gone off. I know that sounds a bit weird, like a body odor, like a salty skin accord. A hint of it. Just a little bit. It's just in there. Which I really like. It adds a bit of depth, it adds a bit of character. You've got the more nicer notes, like the soft floral powderiness coming from the iris and the vanilla. It's really beautiful. Great fragrance, big fan of it. Definitely would like to probably get to the end of this sample, of this decant, before I give you guys my thoughts. Where should we move on to? Let's go with this one. On the complete other end of the spectrum, Diptyque's Oud Palao. Now, I have obviously worn this one before. You can see, I don't know if you'll be able to see, you know, I've worn it a little bit. I've had some experience of wearing this when I think soon after this fragrance was released. And whenever I'm in like fragrance stores, it's been such a long time actually since I've gone to shops and just done some testing, you know? Just spent like a couple of hours and just trying 20, 30 different fragrances on your skin and on blotters and going from different store to store. I really missed that actually. So maybe it's not the same. You know, I think I did go to Harrods. Did I? I can't remember. I went somewhere. This was when things opened up here in the UK, and trying the fragrances just wasn't the same experience. You know, wearing the mask and everyone's all a little bit on edge. But yeah, when things really open up, I'm really looking forward to just getting out there and properly testing fragrances. So whenever I've been to the Diptyque counter, I've always tried this one on. And I think with this one, with Oud Palao, by the way, kind of sounds like a dish that you would get in an Indian restaurant. Like you would order a side of Oud Palao. Anyway, bad jokes aside, this is a kind of fragrance that at first I found was a little bit too challenging for me. I've grown to like it a little bit more, and I've been wearing it. We get it now, like in really cold weather. You know, the temperature's gone down to 1-2 degrees Celsius here in the UK. And I think this works really, really well. After work, I've been trying to stay active, so I've been doing a lot of walks, going up the hill and down again. And I've worn this actually a few times during the day, and then when I go for my walks, your body starts to warm up a little bit, and this fragrance really starts to come back to life. Spicy. The rose note in there is quite sweet, and it's there. It is perceptible. But it's kind of surrounded by this... It's like a sweaty, woody accord, which doesn't sound great, but there is a hint of funk in this fragrance, which is the thing that kind of puts me off within the first couple of hours. But it is also surrounded in there by this sweet woods. There's a hint of maybe a bit of cumin, there's also a dry woody accord in here as well. Maybe the sweetness is coming from the rose, the dryness from the woods and the spiciness maybe coming from maybe actual spices or the oud itself. Not sure. I think this is from Laos. I think they use Laotian or Laotian, however you say that, oud. You never really know what brands, like, what to believe actually when brands tell you that it contains like this type of oud. I mean, if they say it, they say. If it's real oud, it's hard for me to say. There's so many different types of ouds out there, synthetic ouds and real oud oils, and a lot of them have different scent profiles and characteristics depending on the country, how long the oud has been aged for, I guess like the distillation process. I've tried real examples of oud, and they can vary so much to the point where if a fragrance says it contains real oud and it doesn't smell like anything I've smelled like before, that doesn't mean that it's not real. It could just be my own experience. And this is one of the things that I find with oud fragrances, is that they are so diverse. It's a really, quite possibly one of the most, it might be the most interesting ingredient out there. It's not, I'm not saying it's my favorite, but yeah. There's a really regal quality to Oud Palao, but also at the same time, I admire it, but at the same time, it kind of smells like an old jumper. You know, I'm getting these contrasting feelings with this fragrance. It was quite an interesting one actually with Oud Palao, because I wasn't really expecting this from Diptyque. Diptyque are like, they're like that aspirational, you know, fragrance house. You know, somebody who has a nice house with nice candles would go to Diptyque, you know, or they would get their candles from Diptyque. It's that kind of place. It's quite, you know, upper class a little bit. And I'm not saying that I have like any issues with those types of stores, but this type of fragrance is raw, a little bit aggressive at times. And it's kind of cool that Diptyque have branched out. But it's not in line with their house signature style, really. But one thing I like about Oud Palao actually, and I've just sprayed it on, but obviously I know about the dry down, is that it does become quite smooth and lighter actually. A lot of the harshness or the rawness, the power does subside, and you get a kind of sweet, woody, musky dry down. The rose comes through in the dry down really nicely. Overall, I'm actually liking this fragrance a little bit more than when I first tried it out. Okay, so let's move on to another oud one. Might as well continue with another oud. This is actually my scent of the day. This is The Moon by Frederic Malle. I've mentioned this on my channel on that Oud Week video. So it's been a while since I wore this one. I'm wearing it today. I've done about 4 sprays here, and man, this is noticeable. It's expensive fragrance. It's what, £500 for this one, and it's another fragrance from Frederic Malle in their Desert Gems collection. Another oud. They're really going for it with this appeal to the Arabian market, or people who like that style of fragrance. But with Frederic Malle, you know, when they charge these types of prices, and also for the night as well, dawn is really expensive. You know, you got to be blown away. And with this one, I really enjoy it. I think it's a really nicely made fragrance. Fruity, smoky. I think this is the one that is inspired by like a fruity shisha. And actually that is really, really accurate. That really comes through. You can visualize the burning charcoal, and imagine like fruit on top of that charcoal, and the fruity smoke of shisha for sure is in here. I picked up on it in The Promise as well, or just Promise I think, but probably more so in this one. How would I describe the oud in here? It's a difficult one to say. I've got it on. I mean, it's sweet. It's almost like caramel, actually. Sweaty woods again. I know, maybe that's the Diptyque, but actually there is a sweatiness in here, a spicy, sweaty funky, bordering on kind of like erotic, you know? It's got that sensuality, that skin on skin action. I think the moon really evokes those types of thoughts in my head anyway. It's an interesting one for sure. Is it £500 worth? Will I ever spend that type of money on a fragrance? I don't know. I think the most I've ever spent in terms of like outlay, just one go, was Roger's Diaghilev, and I got that at half price. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I mentioned Roger. One of his ouds might be, if I was to spend that type of money, maybe on one of his ouds. But I'll have to test the moon out a little bit more. But it's an interesting one for sure. Not for the faint of hearted. That's for sure. So moving on to another Frederic Malle, and this one, a lot of people have heard about this one. This one is Portrait of a Lady. And I have a lot of experience with Portrait, actually. Got some strong stuff on today. Whew. So, yeah, as I said, I was pretty much aware of Portrait of a Lady when I really started getting into fragrances. So this is going back quite a few years now. I've tried this fragrance a lot in store, wearing it in full, like properly wearing it, trying it on paper. I had a couple of samples. I decided to get a proper sized sample. I love this. This fragrance is so multi-layered. The depth that you'll find, the clarity in the ingredients, the body, deep rose, incense, spices, maybe it's dry but it's sweet at the same time. It's really classy, but it's also got a raunchy side to it. It's got a punch, which I really, really like. I think they really pushed the boat out with this one. Dominique Ropion, Frederic Malle, with this overdose of rose. I believe Frederic Malle has said this is his proudest work, or is it Dominique Ropion has said this is his proudest work? I think I need to double check that, but I can see why. Leafy green, like dry, almost burnt leaves, a little bit in there, but just a hint of that. Man, this is a great fragrance. Frederic Malle, quite possibly one of the best, or quite possibly the best niche brand out there. And I don't mean that in terms of just the scents, but because not a lot of them, not all of them appeal to me, but in terms of, you know, they are quintessentially niche. If you look up niche fragrances in the dictionary, it should say Frederic Malle. The way that they approach the fragrances, their execution, the way that they set up their stores, their packaging, the fact that they put the perfumers on the bottle, the fact that Frederic Malle is often said that his fragrances, he's very honest with his pricing. That's what he says. I'm going to believe what he says. It's not about ripping off the customer. It's about delivering the best product that takes 1-2 years, however long it takes. That's how long it takes. So I really respect the brand for that. So guys, just, you know, sampling some random stuff here. I'll probably try and review these ones sometime soon. If you've tried these, let me know what your thoughts are. It's really great interacting with you guys. If you like what I do, I have a Buy Me a Coffee page where 20% of the proceeds go to cancer research. So if you want to make a contribution, that would be much appreciated. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.